Hello again. Welcome to another session on offshore. So our conference is hybrid, and this very debate is also hybrid. Here in the studio with me, Bartosz Sokoliński from Industrial Development Agency.
Hello.
And hybrid online with us, Michał Kurtyka, Minister of Climate and Environment.
Good afternoon.
Timo Tatar, Minister of Economic Affairs and Communication for Estonia.
Greetings from Estonia.
Are you in Tallinn now?
Indeed, I'm in Tallinn.
Okay. And Giles Dickson from WindEurope. Where are you?
Greetings from Brussels.
Hello. Okay, so here in Poland, local content is quite a topic, isn't it? And I'd like to ask you, Mr. Minister, Mr. Kurtyka, do you think that it's possible to sustain the local, regional economy while developing offshore wind farms with foreign partners as strategic partners?
One does not forbid the other. Thank you very much, Maryjka, for this question. And we firmly believe that, yes, indeed, we can partner with best international companies by Polish companies and at the same time develop strong local content. And here I'm very much confronted with the existing reality. We've been laughing for quite a number of times together with Giles about the fact that Poland has the largest share of employment in the wind energy within the European Union and still is the only country without a single offshore wind mill. So yes, indeed, we have fundamentals on which we can build, and we are confident, optimistic in the fact that in the ongoing process of coordinating the collaboration between the administration and companies within offshore wind sectoral deal, we can make sure that this local content is not only preserved, but it's also a vital part of the success of offshore wind within the Baltic Sea region.
All right. Timo, is local content also an issue in Estonia?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I guess it's not that much of an issue than maybe it is for Poland and for other countries. You know, Estonia is and has been a small country, and our success story has been built on being a open-minded economy, which is all in for competition. And we firmly believe that also when it comes to renewable energy, then the market is at least within the 27 member states, and the companies who are participating in renewable energy value chain has to be able to compete within this market. So this has been a success story for other sectors in economy, and we also believe that when it comes to renewable energy, then our companies, our small unicorn factory in Estonia is also able to produce unicorns in renewable energy sector as well.
Okay, thank you. Giles, you're originally from the UK, but you work for a European organization. And I'd like to ask you, what is the UK's experience in terms of local content, but also what is the European experience in this area?
Well, the UK was actually quite slow in developing its offshore wind supply chain. You know, it was in Denmark and Germany that the European offshore wind industry really developed. Then the UK became the leader in Europe in terms of the pace at which they're building new offshore wind farms, and logically they sought to develop a strong manufacturing base to support that. And they created something called a sector deal, which I think was a model. In fact, I think, Minister, you may have used the very same term for the arrangements that you've put in place now in Poland, an agreement between the industry and the government on the expansion of the manufacturing base, workforce and so on, in exchange for the government committing to auction so many megawatts of new offshore wind every year. And that's a successful model. As the Minister has said, international companies, wherever they develop offshore wind farms, use a lot of local content for engineering, construction, operation and maintenance of the wind farms. In the case of Poland, there is already, as the Minister has said, a very strong industrial base. Poland makes the majority of all of the foundations offshore wind turbines that are built around Europe today. So Poland has a great place to start from, and we look forward to Poland further expanding its manufacturing base for offshore wind. And let us not forget, that will benefit the expansion of Poland's industrial capacity for onshore wind as well.
All right, thank you. Bartosz, you from Industrial Development Agency. What is your perspective? How do you think we can really technically preserve and sustain the local content when it comes to offshore projects?
Okay, so now I will compare it to studies, and we are in very speedy process to learn a lot of things in engineering of offshore. So we really believe that our company, because Industrial Development Agency has in her hands more than 100 companies, and we believe that a lot of them we can use in offshore supply chain. But on the other hand, we would like to build Polish companies, Polish ecosystem of offshore, and we believe that we can use a lot of small, medium businesses here to build it. We believe that of course, offshore is not only a Polish domain, and we believe that it's a global perspective market. We can help companies which will build the ecosystem of offshore wind energy in the world. So you ask where? I think we are tier up to two. We can build companies. We are to this moment we cannot build turbines. We know it, but who knows? Maybe in the future we have a lot of good engineers. As Minister said, a lot of Polish people are working in farms and abroad companies. So we really believe we can do it better and better from day to day.
Okay, but local content is one thing, and apart from that, we've got many factors that shape the market itself. And Michał, what is the most important factor for you, apart from sustaining local content, when it comes to shaping the market? What we should pay attention to right now in Poland?
Well, I think it's the quality of the legislative and regulatory framework which is decisive. And here, I think we are well advanced. We have our Act on the promotion of offshore wind. And we look forward for companies to fill this Act with concrete projects. But local content is somehow a very general term for industrial cooperation, for innovation, for research and development, and for development also of, let's say, somehow maybe surprising companies. Because I was very much encouraged and, as I said, a little bit surprised in a good sense when I visited 2 weeks ago Silesia. And I spoke with companies right now working for Polish mining sector. And many of them expressed interest in supporting Polish offshore wind projects, including in terms of very advanced electronic components. So we can go from sea cables, high power transformers, still electronics, digitalization of the whole process. We already have a lot of, as was said, of foundations which are produced here in Poland internally. We see an enormous opportunity for the steel industry. Let me just quote one number. going from the existing status quo to 6,000 gigawatts, 6,000 megawatts that we want to install by 2030 is an opportunity for about 1 million tons of steel in diverse forms of steel components to be put in place. So that's an opportunity for the steel industry, not only to produce this steel, but also to think about how to produce this steel with less and less carbon impact. So that is also a trigger for innovation. That is a trigger for modernization of Polish industries. And then, last but not least, an extremely important element, an obvious one, which is maritime areas. And in Poland, traditionally, we have all our energy and industry located in the south of the city. With the development of offshore wind sector in the north of the country, we also create industrial opportunities for maritime sector all around. So we can think, for example, of electrolyzers, and we develop, let's say, a twin strategy to the offshore wind sectoral deal around hydrogen. And we have very ambitious goals also in terms of hydrogen. So we expect many collaborations, many very interesting areas for cooperation in the coming years in the north of Poland between offshore wind, shipyards, electrolyzers, hydrogen industry. I think it will be a flourishing area and industrial niche to be developed.
Giles, we've seen your astonishing keynote, and we also know that the UK, Germany, or Denmark, these are really well-developed countries when it comes to offshore projects. I'd like to ask you, what is your advice for such emerging markets when it comes to offshore, such as Poland or Estonia?
My first piece of advice would be invest urgently in the necessary upgrading of Poland's port infrastructure. The ports are absolutely central to the value chain for developing offshore wind. You cannot build an offshore wind farm if you don't have ports that are large enough to store the equipment, that have the heavy loading quaysides that need steel reinforcement, and that have the deep berths for the jack-up vessels. And I know a lot of work is going on this already, and I think, Minister, you've set aside a significant sum of money in Poland's recovery and resilience plan to invest in the upgrading of the area around Gdynia and Gdańsk, and that's very welcome. The first projects want to start their construction in 2024. It's of vital importance that those port upgrade investments should happen now. One further piece of advice, engagement with other stakeholders that have a similar interest in the sea space, notably the fishing communities, the environmental and biodiversity groups, and all of the military interests.
All right, quite many pieces of advice. Timo, what is your perspective? I mean, what is your most important factor right now? What are you stressing the most when it comes to developing offshore wind farms in Estonia?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So indeed, all the elements which have been mentioned are important for Estonia as well. So in a sense, we are going through somewhat similar transformation as it goes on in Poland right now. So we have also historically, we have been dependent on one fossil fuel which has been produced in one specific area of Estonia, and now the production is moving forward from east to west from the coastline, and also in the future also offshore, which means that we are facing totally new challenges compared to maybe the ones which we were facing maybe 15, 20 years ago. When it comes to Estonian renewable energy and offshore, then we see that Estonia is a small country. So definitely for us, a keyword here is cooperation, cross-border cooperation. Giles already mentioned our marvelous project together with Latvia to build the first hybrid project at our corner of Baltic Sea. We are incentivizing DSO cooperation, that it's not going to be just one-off, that Estonia and Latvia will build a wind farm, but this is a beginning of something bigger, a offshore grid connecting different offshore wind farms across the Baltic Sea in the most economic and feasible way. But this is a long-term vision, which we are facing also every day. But there are many challenges even today which we have to tackle to be ready for offshore scale up beyond 2030, because we believe that until 2030 our renewable energy targets will be met also by wind, but by wind onshore. But to be ready for climate neutrality and to boost our renewable energy production up to 2030, then definitely offshore is the topic which we are aiming. Our potential for offshore is quite high, so we are right now calculating that our territories suitable for offshore can accommodate roughly 7 gigawatts of offshore wind. And we are right now working together with consultants to figure out the most optimal way how to make this potential into use in the way that is the most affordable for the society, which also boosts competition and transparency. Those are, I think, the keywords for us, because we truly believe that indeed CFDs are a great thing. They are most probably needed, but like Minister said, the other keyword is quality of the regulation and the laws. So because this is the other element which brings the costs down. So we have to build the environment which boosts offshore investments, preferably market-based, or then very near to market-based, and this is what we are doing. So this means finalizing maritime special planning, finding compromises, local communities, figuring out the ways how all the interests are taken into account, speaking with fisheries, boosting the project of building interconnections between Baltic Sea member states, and also figuring out the local support scheme or compensation mechanism for those who are affected from the initiatives going on offshore. So many things are simultaneously ongoing, figuring out the right scheme, tackling the barriers which keep away the market parity also offshore, and also figuring out what is in a long term the right CFD mechanism. So and all that we are willing to invest some time right now to save some money in the future. So this is our strategy. We learn a lot from others. We use the luxury of starting from the scratch and learning from others' mistakes. So this is what we're doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Bartosz, Timo has just mentioned the regional cooperation. Do you perceive it as an opportunity for Polish companies?
Okay. I would like to underline 3 perspectives. First is industrial development agencies, and of course we want to build strong companies in Polish green energy market. We believe that we can be in a few years a producer for this market. This is our first perspective. Second, and in this perspective, we have also money, so financial services. We believe that we can be operator of loans for small, medium companies, maybe loans and grants, which would like to be in a part of offshore market. The second view is Poland. Also, so we believe that what Minister said, that our offshore market is not only offshore. It's not only offshore engineers. There are not only engineers. We have more things to do. So it's said that about 80,000 people, employees, will be a part of it. But we believe that it's bigger and bigger market because there are also coders, others, and other markets. And what you said, and Timo, that the third perspective is cooperation. Regional, of course, we have to build a very strong cooperation between our companies and between Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. I really believe that we can be a big partner of it. And of course, we should play together global.
All right, Michał, what is your perspective about the regional cooperation? Do you have any plans, or do you think that, for instance, hybrid projects with countries like Estonia are possible in the near future?
Thank you very much, Maryjka, for this question. Well, that brings me to September last year, when we initiated, together with 8 other countries of the Baltic Sea region, a cooperation, and we signed Baltic Sea offshore wind declaration of intent, and we are very proud of the fact that it happened in Szczecin. But we have right now to fill it with concrete projects, and I'll be very happy to let's say, move forward with this declaration of intent to fill it with concrete projects and actions once COVID has a little bit tightened its grip on our region. And indeed, when you are speaking about Estonia, I exchanged no later than 1 week ago with Estonian President Kersti Kaljulaid about a possible cooperation in this regard. Kersti visited Poland, and we had great opportunity to discuss together. And the Estonian President brought with her a number of Estonian companies. And indeed, as Timo said, this is a very great quality mark of Estonia. Not the size maybe, but the quality and digitalization. And so we think that there is a lot to do within our region. And as we are also supporting the synchronization of Baltic states with continental Europe, we also feel responsible for making sure that within our region we will have enough energy, not only for Poland, but also for region.
All right, it sounds like quite of a cooperation. Giles, what is your pan-European perspective? So, I mean, how do you perceive such regional cooperations? Is it easy? Have you got any more pieces of advice?
It's not easy, but it is essential. The countries around the North Sea have been cooperating on offshore wind for longer now than the countries around the Baltic Sea. And they have to work very hard at it, but the rewards are significant. And now around the North Sea and also in the Baltic, of course, there are some real projects for hybrid offshore wind farms that have grid connections to 2 or more countries coming forward. These are very good projects because they allow for a pooling of transmission and generation assets. That saves money and it saves space, and it improves energy flows between countries around Europe. Most offshore wind farms will continue to be what we call point-to-point wind farms. That is to say, they have one single grid connection back to the mother country. But there will be more and more of these hybrid projects. We estimate that by 2050, around 1/3 of Europe's offshore wind will be hybrid projects with multiple grid connections.
Thank you very much. I think we've had quite a fruitful discussion and quite cooperative discussion. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much to you, our guest today.
For the moderator.
Thank you very much.